All right, let's talk about bookings. Now, this is right there in the portal. This is the bookings tab. That's what you're going to click on to get here. This is where we start making our money because we're setting up our schedule, our availability. You can see down the side, all of those times, they're in your time zone. Mine happens to be the American New York time zone right up there above the unlock button. You can change that, and I'll show you where you can change that, but it's really easy to do. And if you change that, it recalculates everything down the side, but it does not affect your bookings whatsoever. It doesn't change anything for your students because they're seeing it in Beijing time anyway. When you're ready to set your availability, you have to click on that unlock button because you notice it's got this gray cover over it. That's to keep us from accidentally opening a slot that we didn't mean to open. When we click the unlock, it turns white like this. This means we can now set our availability. Now, does anybody know anything about those yellow or those orange hot spots? What can you tell me? You can raise your hand or you can type it in the chat box. Peak times and peak times. The orange ones are the peak times. They are the most popular times. They're the ones you're most likely to get booked in. That's when the kids are most likely to be available. However, that does not mean you cannot get places in those white sections. This summer, I've been teaching from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time, which is 4 p.m. for them. And you can see that 4 a.m. slots, those in there, those first 2 hours after 4 a.m., those are just plain white slots. They're not peak times. They have been full. I know another teacher who during the school year, she teaches from 9 to midnight U.S. Eastern Time, 9 to noon in the morning for the Beijing time. She gets plenty of students. She likes what she's doing. That works well for her. So try those out. When I first got started, it takes a while to build your clientele because we're used to our brick and mortar classes where we walk in and somebody says, here's your work, get that done. Oh, good, here's your paycheck. Well, here, we're storing them all. And if you bought anything on Amazon or Etsy or anything, you know that if you've got 3 vendors right there and you're choosing a product, you're going to choose from the vendor who's been rated highly rather than the one who's never been rated at all. So it does take time getting those trial classes, getting those last-minute classes that I'll tell you about in just a minute, and they start coming back to you and they start rating you. It builds up a little at a time. It took me several months to start getting any sort of regularity to my schedule, and I was only teaching a couple hours a day at the time. But I would open up tons of it, and I'd get one here, I'd get one here. And, oh, look, I got 2 on the same day. And it takes a little bit of time, so you do have to be patient. When you're ready to open one, you click on the box, and you get that little fly out there. You click on course, the radial button by course, and the box turns blue and says available. You'll notice it has a cancel button on it. If you want to close that slot, you hit the cancel button. I hate that they call it cancel. You're not canceling anything. You're just closing the slot. So long as the slot is blue, you're not canceling anything, and it does not matter. Now let me explain how bookings work. So let's say today we're Monday the 9th in Beijing, and it's now 12 o'clock. Now you'll notice up at the top it says Monday through Sunday. Well, that's because the Chinese have this very strange idea that a weekend should actually fall at the end of the week. Who would have ever thought such a thing? So that's how they arrange their week. So keep that in mind when you're planning out your week. It runs Monday to Sunday in that way. So on Monday at noon in Beijing, the booking frenzy starts. And once you've built up a clientele, you'll experience the booking frenzy. What happens is at noon, the Chinese parents are able to get online and start booking for your classes that you have open still this week, but now your next week is open. So Monday the 16th and that following week is now available for them to book in. They can still book this week, the 9th through the 15th, but now they can also book the 16th through that following Sunday. They can't book anything after that. They can book a class with you up to 24 hours before a class starts. It gives you plenty of time to prepare for that class. All right? That is when the booking frenzy happens, is on Mondays. When it is booked, it turns this lovely shade of money, and the student's name shows up in it. When you're ready to enter that class, you click on that green box. and you get this flyout here. It gives you information on the student, and you just click Go to Classroom. You can cancel the class if it's not too late. If it's too late, the class is about to start, then that will be great, and it'll say you can't cancel the class. But be aware, be sure that you know your cancellation policies before you go canceling, because if you cancel too late, it can cost you money, things like that. So you'll click on that Go to Classroom, and it will take you to the virtual classroom. Now, do you remember, how long did I say they could book with you before a class started? Do you recall? 24 hours, yes. Excellent. Now, if you click on that spot again and get the flyout box, you can click that short notice button. See how short notice shows up in there? This is now a short notice class, and they can book with you between 24 hours and 1 hour before a class can start. Obviously, you have less time to prepare, but the vast majority of these are trials anyway. And so I strongly recommend you go to the trial class workshop. I think that's one of the earliest ones you should go to as well. If you're doing the trial class 3.0, that's different from the original trial class, the trial class tips and tricks. So there are a couple different trial classes. When you do your certification for trial class 3.0, it gives you all of the trial class PPTs in there. So you're already prepped for them. If you go to the trial class tips and tricks and learn about the old trial class setup, they will give you a link to all the PowerPoints in there, and you're prepared for them. So it's really not a big deal if you have a short amount of time, because you've already looked through it and you've gotten prepared. Do not let the number of these PowerPoints overwhelm you. They're all pretty similar. You're doing pretty similar things throughout all of them, and do a little bit at a time. Only open 1 or 2 short notices at a time if you want to. But short notices can get you classes. For one thing, the firemen, often they've got a live one. They really want that person that they're excited about it, and they want a trial class. No, we want to do it today. Oh, gosh, but I can't book with somebody in less than 24 hours. So they're looking. Oh, look, there's one that's short notice, and they'll stick them in there, and that could be you. You could then get that student to sign up, and then they'll come back to you. Or somebody takes notice of you and says, hey, that's a pretty good teacher. And they start directing the sales team towards you and the Chinese learning partners towards you. You can also end up with a major course student that way, because let's say that little Johnny has been on vacation and they weren't planning on him taking a class, but then they kind of decide to at the last minute. You're available, they put him in there in your class. So it can work to your advantage to try out that short notice class.